What if the words, "You paid me, now do whatever you want," were answered with an act of kindness instead of cruelty? In today's unforgettable Wild West story, a brave rancher changes an Apache girl's life forever. Don't miss this emotional journey of courage and compassion. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Let's begin. Montana, USA, 1887. A relentless drought had turned once green valleys into fields of dust, leaving ranchers struggling and Apache families fighting to survive. Streams had dried up, crops had failed, and wild game had nearly disappeared. Desperate people wandered from settlement to settlement searching for food, water, or honest work. Yet kindness had become rare in those difficult times. Fear and prejudice often spoke louder than compassion. In the small frontier town of Red Creek, whispers spread that a livestock auction would be held that morning, drawing ranchers, traders, and fortune-seekers from miles around in hopes of making profitable deals despite the harsh conditions. The town square buzzed with noise as horses neighed, wagons rolled over the dusty road, and merchants shouted prices across the crowded market. Ranchers inspected cattle, while buyers argued over every dollar. Near the edge of the auction yard stood a young Apache girl named Naya. She wore worn-out clothing, her face covered with dust from days of travel, and her tired eyes never rose from the ground. Beside her stood a dishonest trader who claimed she owed him money for food and shelter. He loudly insisted she now belonged to whoever settled the debt, treating her as though she were another item for sale. Many people watched the scene without saying a word. Some shook their heads with pity, but none stepped forward to question the trader's cruel behavior. A few even laughed, believing that nothing unusual was happening on the frontier. Naya remained silent, clutching a small leather pouch that held the only belongings she had left from her family. Every harsh word from the trader reminded her of everything she had lost during the drought. She had learned that arguing only made cruel people angrier, so she stood quietly, hoping someone would see her as a human being instead of a burden. Among the crowd was Jacob Carter, a respected rancher known throughout the region for his honesty and calm nature. He had traveled to town intending to purchase supplies and perhaps a strong workhorse for his ranch. As he walked through the market, the trader's loud voice caught his attention. Jacob stopped when he noticed the frightened expression on Naya's face. Unlike the others, he ignored the trader's dramatic speech and focused on the girl's silent fear. He understood hardship better than most, having lost family members during difficult winters, and something about the situation felt deeply wrong to him. Jacob calmly approached the trader and asked for an explanation. The man quickly claimed that Naya owed him money for food, clothing, and transportation, and insisted frontier customs allowed him to recover the debt however he wished. Jacob listened without raising his voice. He knew the law in remote territories was often unfair and easily manipulated by dishonest people. Rather than arguing with the trader in front of the growing crowd, Jacob counted the amount the man demanded. The trader greedily accepted the payment with a wide smile, believing he had made an easy profit from another desperate situation. The moment the coins changed hands, every eye in the marketplace turned toward Jacob and Naya. Silence slowly replaced the shouting of merchants nearby. Naya's hands trembled as she stared at the dusty ground. Years of hardship had taught her to expect the worst from strangers with power. Barely able to speak, she whispered, "You paid me. Now do whatever you want." Her quiet words carried through the silent crowd like a cold wind. Several men exchanged amused smiles, expecting Jacob to treat her as property. Others looked away, unwilling to witness what they assumed would happen next. Instead of responding with authority, Jacob slowly removed his heavy ranch coat and gently placed it over Naya's shoulders to shield her from the cold prairie wind. His voice remained calm as he looked directly at her and said, "No person can ever be bought. You're free to choose your own path." For a moment, no one spoke. Even the trader's confident smile disappeared. The unexpected act of kindness left the crowd stunned. Naya looked up for the first time that day, disbelief filling her eyes. In that single moment, surrounded by strangers and silence, hope quietly returned to a heart that had almost forgotten what it felt like. Jacob led Naya away from the noisy town and toward his quiet ranch, nestled beneath the rolling hills of Montana. The journey was peaceful, yet Naya remained silent the entire way, expecting every kind gesture to disappear once they reached their destination. When they arrived, Jacob introduced her to the ranch hands as an honored guest, not a servant. He prepared a warm meal, brought her clean clothes, and showed her a small room with a comfortable bed. Before leaving, he simply smiled and said, "This room is yours for as long as you choose to stay." For the first time in many months, Naya slept without fear. The following morning, Naya woke before sunrise, determined to repay Jacob for his generosity. She quietly swept the porch, carried water from the well, and helped feed the horses before anyone asked. Jacob noticed her hard work, but never treated it as a debt she owed. Instead, he thanked her with genuine respect and invited her to join everyone for breakfast at the same table. The simple act surprised Naya. She had expected to eat alone, yet Jacob believed every person deserved equal dignity. His actions slowly challenged everything she had been forced to believe about strangers. As the weeks passed, Jacob patiently taught Naya the daily routines of ranch life. He showed her how to saddle horses safely, repair wooden fences, and care for injured animals with patience rather than force. During quiet evenings, he taught her simple English words by writing them on pieces of paper while she shared Apache words and traditions with him. Their conversations became longer each day, filled with laughter instead of fear. Naya discovered that Jacob respected her culture and listened carefully whenever she spoke about her family, her homeland, and the hardships her people had endured. Although life at the ranch became peaceful, not everyone in town welcomed the growing friendship between Jacob and Naya. A few neighbors whispered cruel rumors, claiming Jacob had made a foolish decision. Others repeated old prejudices against Apache families without ever knowing Naya personally. Jacob ignored the gossip and continued treating her with kindness and fairness. Over time, many people began noticing Naya's honesty, hard work, and gentle nature. She helped sick neighbors, comforted frightened children, and volunteered whenever someone needed assistance. Slowly, suspicion gave way to respect, and the town's opinion began to change. One windy afternoon, dust rose along the distant trail as several armed riders approached the ranch. Leading them was the same dishonest trader who had taken Jacob's money weeks earlier. With a proud grin, he claimed the payment had only settled part of the debt and insisted Naya still belonged to him. His companions rested their hands near their weapons, hoping fear alone would force Jacob to surrender. Naya's face turned pale as painful memories rushed back. She stepped behind Jacob, convinced the nightmare she had escaped was about to begin once again. Jacob calmly walked to the front gate and faced the men without reaching for his rifle. Looking directly at the trader, he declared, "She's free, and no one will ever own her." His steady voice carried across the ranch. Before the trader could answer, several nearby ranchers and townspeople arrived after hearing about the confrontation. They stood beside Jacob, refusing to let injustice return to their community. Outnumbered and realizing the town no longer supported his lies, the trader lowered his head. Without firing a single shot, he turned his horse around and rode away in complete humiliation. After that day, Naya was no longer seen as a frightened stranger, but as a valued member of the community. She continued helping on the ranch, while also sharing Apache traditions, stories, and skills with local families, building friendships that once seemed impossible. Jacob never asked for praise or recognition, believing kindness was simply the right thing to do. Together, they proved that respect could overcome prejudice and that compassion was stronger than fear. Their stories spread across neighboring towns, inspiring others to judge people by their character instead of their background, reminding everyone that true strength is found in humanity, dignity, and doing what is right.